Welcome to the Cheating Secrets channel.
Chris, what are you doing at home? Angela, my wife of 28 years, asked. She had just walked through the door and saw me sitting at our kitchen table, less than 10 feet away from her. Her body partially shielded a tall young man who followed her into our home. As always, Angela looked stunning. Her chestnut hair fell gracefully onto her shoulders. She was always dressed professionally for work, and today was no exception. She wore a white blouse, and I noticed that an extra button was undone, revealing an enticing glimpse of cleavage between her impressive breasts. Her black linen skirt accentuated her world-class legs. I quickly thought over Angela's ridiculous question and responded just as foolishly, "I live here." A quick flash of irritation, which had been growing more frequent over the past few weeks, surfaced as she snapped, "Of course, you live here. What I want to know is why you're home at 3:30 in the afternoon." I often joke to anyone willing to listen that I've loved Angela since the moment we first met. I had an appointment with her company's management, and Angela was their administrative assistant. She greeted me in the lobby and escorted me to the conference room. 4 hours later, as she walked me back to the lobby, I took a chance and asked her out to dinner. The rest, as they say, is history. By this time, Angela's gentleman friend had stepped around her and was now standing beside her. I almost expected him to smirk, but instead, there was a flicker of unease in his very sharp eyes. From the beginning, nothing had been going as planned. "I think I could ask you the same question, Angie. What are you doing home an hour and a half early?" Angela and I were bound by fate from the moment of our first date. I can proudly say that I dedicated every ounce of my energy to her and our family. I worked hard and built a small but highly successful insurance brokerage firm. With the support of her employer, Angela enrolled in college and, after 6 years, earned her bachelor's degree. She transitioned from a support role to a position in human resources. Eventually, she became the head of the HR department at the company's office in Hartford, Connecticut. I had loved Angela unconditionally for nearly 3 decades. As I sat there, looking at the monster she had become over the past few weeks, I forced myself to stay calm. I wanted to break her just as effectively as she had broken me when I discovered she was a lying, cheating adulteress. When I flashed Angie my trademark crooked smirk, she responded, "We came home early to talk to you." "We?" I asked, staring directly into Angie's eyes. The idiot took the opportunity to introduce himself. He stepped forward, extended his hand, and confidently said, "Mr. Harrington." "Chris. I'm Michael Browner. I'm the new attorney at Kellerman and Sons, and I've been working closely with Angie for the past couple of months." Still glaring down at Angie, I ignored his outstretched hand. Every primal instinct in me screamed to leap up, wrap my hands around his worthless neck, and squeeze until his eyes popped out of his skull. Instead, I growled, "I know exactly who and what you are." For the first time, I saw signs of unease in my wife. Then she flinched as I continued, "Angie. You once threatened to cut something off the last person who called you Angie. So why are you tolerating such disrespect in your own home from this pile of trash?" I gestured toward the jerk. Angie looked both alarmed and embarrassed. By nature, she's meticulous in her planning. I was certain that she and the idiot had considered every possible scenario for this conversation. In her mind, everything had been neatly arranged. In her imagination, I was already a compliant cuckold. A quick glance at the jerk made me smile. I was absolutely certain that his sphincter muscles had tightened and would soon be knotted up as tight as a rope. A crap storm was brewing, and it would be nothing like anything Angie and her boy toy could have imagined. I took 2 or 3 deep cleansing breaths, trying to push down the anger and disgust simmering in a quiet corner of my heart. Let's get this over with, I thought to myself. Time to throw them off balance again. Why don't I make us 3 drinks, I suggested. We can talk in the living room. A glass of wine, please, Angie requested softly. When I turned to the bastard, he looked wary. He responded to my offer by saying, Angela told me you're a fan of bourbon and craft beer. I nodded and said to him, yes, then stood up from the kitchen table and headed to the bar in our living room. As I left the room, I immediately heard urgent whispers as they moved in the opposite direction, through the kitchen and into the living room. A few minutes later, I joined them in the living room. They were sitting together on the couch. I handed Angie a glass of her favorite Merlot and gave the idiot a dirty glass filled with amber beer that I picked up my 2-inch pour of bourbon and sat in the armchair across from them. Raising my glass in a toast, I took a small sip of the fiery liquid. Returning the toast, the jerk took a sip of his beer. He held the glass in front of him and seemed to study the color of the drink. Then he commented, this beer has the most unusual taste of any I've ever tried. What is it? Pabst Blue Ribbon, I replied. The jerk's eyes flared with anger, while Angie looked embarrassed and asked, isn't that the beer you said is worse than donkey piss and the crappiest beer ever made? She was halfway through her question when she noticed I was laughing. She exploded, you're such a jerk. We came home to have a calm conversation with you, and you've been nothing but rude and condescending. I smiled and asked, I'm an arrogant, condescending jerk. Well, I think it's time we start addressing your conversation instead. I'm sure I'll soon learn how to have polite, inspiring, and loving discussions with my eternally faithful wife. Angie shrank back and couldn't meet my gaze. Chris, we came here to talk everything through. I cut him off and said, you got it right the first time. Excuse me? He looked confused, as idiots often do. When you first addressed me, you called me Mr. Harrington before presumptuously calling me Chris. I much prefer, actually, I insist, you call me Mr. Harrington. As his face began to turn red, I finished with a shrug, adding, or, the Honorable Sir. Instead of letting the fool continue, I turned to Angie and asked, what is it you wanted to talk about? When the idiot looked like he was about to respond, I said, I'm talking to my wife, idiot. Just sit there, drink your amber donkey piss, and shut up. Angie was furious and exploded, your behavior is disgusting. I wanted to stop right now. I nodded and appeared to consider her request. Then I asked, do you think my behavior is better or worse than yours has been over the last 5 or 6 weeks? What are you talking about? Angie was half confused, half worried. The jerk seemed to hold his breath, waiting for my response. I guess he realized their carefully crafted plan was starting to fall apart. Looking Angie straight in the eyes, I said to her, I don't know what pisses me off more, the fact that you let him shove his worthless little tool into your dried-up old hole, or that you've been treating me like an idiot. The stunned expression on Angela's face was priceless. Her eyes narrowed, and in a hushed voice, she asked the obvious, how do you know? It seems I have more friends in your office than you do. 2 weeks ago, I received an anonymous letter from one of your colleagues. The letter revealed that you're having an affair and included 3 attachments showing you and the idiot at a picnic in Middlewoods Park. The photos were full of hand-holding and kissing. I'm sorry you had to find out this way. Angie was trying to figure out how to continue when I interrupted her and asked, so, do you want a divorce? No. She slid to the edge of the couch, leaned forward with her elbows on her knees, and said passionately, I love you, and I don't want a divorce. What Michael and I have is just a short-term fling. He's new to Connecticut and hasn't made many friends. Once he settles in, I'm sure he'll find a steady girlfriend. I'm very sorry, but that doesn't work for me. I signed up for a monogamous relationship with a loving wife. Instead, I've discovered that the woman I devoted my life to is an adulteress and a disgrace. Divorce fits much better into my plans for the future. Angela began pleading, Chris. Just stop. I don't want a divorce, and I don't think you really want one either. This is a one-time fling and nothing more. I'm attracted to Michael, and I wanted a little extra excitement in my life. It's never happened before, it'll end soon, and it will never happen again. I promise. I took a small sip of my bourbon and sat silently for a few moments before replying, First of all, your promises are meaningless. Everyone in this room knows you're a lying adulteress. Angela looked ready to explode, but I continued, and second, why should I believe this is your first affair? I'm more inclined to think it's your 51st. Please. You need to stop and think. We've worked so hard together to build our family, and now that Kelly is married, we can slow down and plan a wonderful retirement in a few years. By then, my fling with Michael will be long over and completely forgotten. I got up and, without asking if anyone else wanted a drink, walked to the study and refilled my glass. I was certain my poor manners hadn't gone unnoticed by the two idiots in the living room. They were huddled together, whispering, when I returned. May I say something, Mr. Harrington? The jackass asked. Go ahead, I replied with disdain. He gathered his thoughts before speaking. Angela is right. Our relationship is nothing more than a short-term fling. I regret involving a married woman in an affair. I've never done this before. But we connected. As you know, she's an amazing woman. Your threat of divorce, while understandable in the heat of the moment, will ultimately prove unwise in the long run. You've spent decades together. Don't throw that away. Angela was initially worried that the prenuptial agreement her father forced you to sign would cause her to lose many of her assets in a divorce if we were caught. I can assure you, as a lawyer, that a nearly 30-year-old agreement can easily be overturned. Laws change. Legal phrasing becomes outdated. Any competent attorney could laugh that document out of court. But more importantly, you need solid proof of infidelity. Aside from some mild, innocent public flirting that perhaps a few of our colleagues might have witnessed, I'm confident you don't have the evidence necessary to enforce the agreement. When he finished his brilliant legal summary, I couldn't help but wonder how my wife had become so foolish. Turning to Angela, I asked, I can't understand why you sought legal advice from a corporate lawyer who graduated in the bottom quarter of his class from the South Texas College of Law. South Texas consistently ranks among the 10 worst law schools in the country year after year. How do you know? The idiot hadn't finished his thought when I replied, one of my many mottos is, know your enemy. I continued, turning my attention back to Angela, what's your plan, Angie? It took her a few minutes to gather her thoughts before she said to me, Michael and I are going to spend the weekend together. Tonight, I'll stay at his apartment, and in the morning, we're leaving for New York. We'll stay in the city tomorrow and Saturday night, and I'll be back home on Sunday. Even though I knew their exact plans, the sheer audacity of my adulterous wife's statement ripped my heart out of my chest. I hoped she would notice the overwhelming sadness in my eyes as I asked, "So not only have you shared your body with this piece of garbage, but now you're planning to share our quarterly weekend getaway with him? We've gone to New York 4 times a year, every year since we got married. Memories of all the exciting places we visited together, the award-winning Broadway shows, concerts, and sporting events, we shared all of it. And now, you've destroyed thousands of cherished memories. I don't know what happened, Angie, but you've become just as much of a pile of garbage as that idiot." I was obviously referring to the fool. Angela could see that I was devastated and responded accordingly. I didn't hear a single word she said, as the voices in my head were screaming, "Stop this. End it right now, for God's sake." Looking at the visibly concerned idiot, I asked, "Does your wife mind that you're sleeping with mine?" "Christopher. Stop. Michael is a widower. His wife died of cancer several years ago. He's never cheated on her." Even the idiot had enough decency to cringe at my wife's last statement. I smirked and said to Angela, "Unlike you." I immediately continued and asked, "Is that true? Are you a widower?" He quickly shifted his gaze from Angie to me and back again before hesitantly saying, "Yes." I leaned down and pulled a folder from the backpack lying on the floor beside my chair. Opening the folder, I flipped to the first page and began to read Dr. Cynthia Browner, Emergency Department Surgeon at St. John's Ascension Hospital, Detroit. Husband, Michael. Daughters, Katie, 11, and Lacey, 9. Dr. Browner applied for her current position as of June 22 and will be relocating to Hartford, Connecticut, to join her husband as soon as her children finish school. She will take on a similar role at St. Francis Hospital and Medical Center in Hartford. If I weren't so utterly miserable about my marriage, I might have burst out laughing at the look on Angela's face. "You lied to me." She clearly wanted to know that I couldn't help myself. I laughed. "Can you imagine?" I roared. "A cheater and a liar lying to a cheater and a liar. What is this world coming to?" Michael reached out and took Angela's hand. Before I could shout, "Get your damn hands off my wife," I realized I just didn't care anymore. "Angie, baby. I'm sorry. I lied. I couldn't help myself. You're so sexy and beautiful. I wanted you, I needed you, and I lied to get you," he said, standing up while still holding her hand. "Let's go back to my place and talk. Tomorrow we'll head to New York and have an amazing weekend. When we return, we'll still have 3 weeks before my family arrives. Then you can go back to being a full-time wife, and I'll be a full-time husband and father." Angela took a few moments to consider her options before standing up. She took his hand and turned to me. "After this weekend, I promise to completely end things with Michael. I'll come home on Sunday and be the same loving wife I've always been." Angie and I looked at each other for a while. I wondered if she could hear how my already broken heart was continuing to shatter. "I've been sitting here rather politely, letting you both share your little infatuation and explain how, in the long run, it won't affect my relationship with Angie. Now I'd like to ask you both to sit down and give me about 30 minutes to outline the changes I see happening." They looked at each other, then back at me, silently trying to decide what to do. I brushed aside the hesitation and added, "The least you can do is give me 30 minutes of your time." They reluctantly sat down. I've scheduled a few Zoom meetings for us, I said, pointing the remote at the TV and pressing a few buttons. I had become an expert in organizing Zoom meetings during the COVID-19 pandemic. As the TV screen lit up, I asked, Peter. Lou. Can you hear me? I spoke to the two faces on the screen. We can hear you, Chris. Peter replied. That I continued, Angie, you obviously know our family attorney, Peter. I'd like to introduce you to his partner and my new divorce attorney, Lou Baird. Gentlemen, I'd also like to introduce you to the extraordinary corporate lawyer, Michael Browner. Angie and the idiot were stunned as I went on, Gentlemen, the floor is yours. Mrs. Harrington, I represent your husband in the upcoming divorce proceedings. The papers were filed with the court this afternoon. I would greatly appreciate it if you hired an attorney and ensured that you personally receive the documents. I'll give you until the end of the day on Monday. If I don't hear from your attorney, we will hire a process server to deliver them to you. We've filed for divorce, citing infidelity as the cause. We have a private investigator's report that extensively documents, using audio, visual, and telecommunication evidence, your sexual relationship with Mr. Browner. As Lou finished his statement, I tossed a second folder onto the coffee table in front of Angie. The loud slap made both idiots jump. This is a copy of our divorce filing, including the private investigator's report, I said to the stunned couple. As the idiot reached for the folder, Angie turned her attention back to the screen. We will insist that the prenuptial agreement be fully enforced. I know you're aware that every 2 years, all business and personal legal matters for your family are reviewed. As part of that review, the prenuptial agreement was updated to ensure it aligns with current legal standards in the state. Since we have your signed and notarized consent for every update over the past 28 years, I am 100% confident that the prenuptial agreement is fully enforceable. As a result of a vote conducted last night by the Board of Directors of Harrington Brokerage, you have been relieved of all corporate duties and are no longer associated with Mr. Harrington's firm in any capacity. You will have 7 days to return your company car. Your corporate credit cards have been canceled and deactivated. Your mobile phone will be deactivated in 7 days. Additionally, your memberships at Cedar Mountain Country Club and LA Fitness have been revoked. We have also canceled and deactivated 3 joint credit cards shared with my client. Your joint savings, checking, and retirement accounts have been frozen. According to the prenuptial agreement, we anticipate an 80-20 split of cash and other assets in favor of Mr. Harrington. According to the agreement, Mr. Harrington will retain the house free and clear. We have asked the court to expedite your eviction. Since you have a property that you occasionally shared with Mr. Browner, we will argue that it will be easier for you to relocate. We are requesting the court to immediately grant Mr. Harrington full ownership and give you 30 days to remove your personal belongings from the house. There will be no spousal support, and obviously, child support is not applicable. There are several minor claims my client has made. Your attorney will be able to explain those to you. Chris, did I miss anything? You hit all the key points, Lou. Thank you. The TV screen immediately went dark. Just as quickly, Angie jumped to her feet and shouted, "Wait." She turned to me and said, "Get them back. I have questions." I laughed and replied, "That's not how it works, Angie. You'll need to hire your own lawyer to get those answers." "You bastard." Angie snarled. "I'm going to destroy you, damn it." Smirking, I looked at her accomplice and asked, "Hey, idiot. What does your almost genius legal mind tell you about how this woman is going to destroy me in a divorce? His silence made Angela slump back into the couch and curl up. I must have been grinning from ear to ear. I simply picked up the TV remote, waved it in front of her, and then pointed it at the screen. As the second Zoom meeting began, I asked, "Jake, can you hear me?" "Hi, Chris. I have a conference call I need to jump on, so this will be quick." "Browner. You're fired, effective immediately. Your personal belongings will be removed from your office and placed in a box in the lobby. If they are not claimed within 24 hours, they will be discarded. You will not receive a recommendation. Angela." I heard her boss slow down and sigh. I looked at Angie and saw her trembling. She was scared to death. I can't express how disappointed I am. Your behavior as a senior executive is inexcusable. Nevertheless, 29 years of exemplary service must be taken into account. Your position in Hartford has been eliminated. I am offering you an equivalent position at our facility in Albany, New York. You have 1 week to decide whether to accept the transfer and 30 days to relocate to Albany. If you decline, you will be terminated. The screen went dark again as Angie buried her face in her hands and sobbed, while the idiot leaned back on the couch. I deliberately smirked at the fool. When he noticed me, his rage began to build. He was younger, bigger, and probably stronger. Unfortunately for him, he was as dumb as a bag of rocks. Just as the idiot looked ready to explode, I once again waved the remote, aimed it at the TV, and pressed a button. The screen lit up, and I asked, "Dr. Browner? Can you hear me?" The idiot and Angie sat in stunned silence. They were as pale as ghosts, their mouths hanging open. On the screen appeared the face of a beautiful blonde woman. "I asked you to call me Cynthia." "Sorry, Cynthia. The idiot is all yours." "Michael, I've filed for divorce. Expect to be served in the next few days. The kids and I will be staying in Michigan. I've managed to keep my current position at the hospital." The idiot began pleading, "Cynthia, please. We can work this out. It was just a fling." Her face on the screen twisted in disgust. "I've done some checking since Chris reached out to me. This is the third job you've lost because you couldn't keep your little guy in your pants." After receiving the private investigator's report, I contacted him and asked him to dig a bit deeper. Everyone was riveted to the screen as Cynthia continued, "Mrs. Harrington, do you know Alice Packer?" "Probably. How about Tori Jones? Or Candy Phillips?" When Angie didn't respond, Cynthia laughed and said, "I don't really expect an answer. The question was rhetorical. I know they're all your colleagues. Did you know that Michael had affairs with each of them? Can you imagine? You were just one of his many lovers. Tell me where to send your crap, Michael. You're no longer welcome in my house." When the screen went black again, the idiot screamed, "I'm going to kill you, you bastard." He struggled to his feet, but I pulled my .45 Colt from under the armchair cushion and aimed it at him. The idiot looked like he was about to vomit, and that was exactly the reaction I wanted. It's pretty ironic. You cheat, lie, and share your body with this jerk, and I'm the one who needs a mental health professional. I laughed and continued. After I told Dr. Waters our story, she asked me a question that really helped me. She said, "Do you understand the old saying, love is blind?" When she asked that, it felt like a light switched on in a dark room. I loved you so much that I never would have known you were a cheating adulteress if it weren't for that anonymous letter. My love was so strong that it blinded me to your flaws. Hell, in my eyes, you didn't have any flaws. I hope you realize you'll never find anyone who loved you as much as I did. Angie kept crying and rocking back and forth on the couch. I'm going to keep seeing Dr. Waters. I think it's incredibly important to have someone to confide your most private thoughts and feelings to, especially after something as devastating as this. I never would have thought that someone I loved so deeply could humiliate and disrespect me to this extent. But the good news is, I'll survive the pain and humiliation, just as I'll survive you. I told Dr. Waters about my plan for today. She's not a big fan of revenge, but she thought the first 3 Zoom meetings were fair. She believed you deserved some form of reckoning. However, she really tried to talk me out of our next Zoom meeting. She thought the pain it would cause me might set me back a few steps in my personal recovery. I thought about it, and I admit, Dr. Waters is probably right. The next meeting will hurt me more than it helps. But I don't care. This next meeting will hurt me, but it will devastate you. As I raised the remote for the 4th time and waved it in Angie's direction, she panicked and leaned back against the couch in fear. I pointed the remote at the TV and pressed a button. All eyes were glued to the screen, and when a face appeared, Angie groaned, "Oh no. Oh no. Please, God, no. I love you, Dad," my daughter Kelly said. "I love you too, sweetheart." "Why?" Angie shrieked. "How can you treat me so horribly?" "I heard everything, Mom. I heard every word you and your idiot boyfriend said over the last hour. I heard what you've done and what you plan to do. You disgust me, Mom." "Sweetheart. Please. This is a very complicated situation. You're too young to understand." Angela gasped when Kelly replied, "Screw you, Mom. I'm 26 years old, a happily married woman. Your situation isn't complicated. It's grotesque on one hand and pathetic on the other. I don't know what changed, but you're selfish and completely self-absorbed." Angela was breathing heavily, pleading, "Kelly. Sweetheart. I've been so lonely since you left. It feels like I've been living in a fog. I've missed you so much." Kelly's face on the screen looked puzzled. "So, are you saying, Mom, that it's my fault you became a liar, a cheater, and an adulteress? That you crushed Dad and are planning to keep cheating on him?" "No. That's not what I'm saying, and you know it. It doesn't matter, Mom. I think we all need a break from you." "Kelly." Angela cried. "I'll come to Boston this weekend, and we can talk. I'm so sorry this happened. I need to be with my baby." "That's not going to work, Mom, for 2 reasons. First, you'll be in New York, sleeping with your worthless, unemployed, recently divorced boyfriend." "I'm not going to New York," Angela insisted. "And second, Scott and I have planned a small, private celebration for our family and closest friends. We've rented a place near Cape Cod." "Sweetheart." "Oh, sweetheart. What are you celebrating? Since you're not invited, it's none of your business." "But I'm 3 months pregnant, and I'm having a baby girl in February." "Kelly Ann. I'm your mother, and I insist that you invite me." "That's not going to happen, Mom. I want my special party to be filled with love and happiness, not the lies, deceit, and disrespect that dominate your life right now. Goodbye, Mom. For the fourth time, the screen went dark. As Angela sat there crying, I got to my feet and tucked my gun into the waistband of my pants. I'm going to grab dinner and we'll be back in 2 hours. Looking at Angela, I added, please pack your clothes and other essentials. You won't be allowed back in the house until the court responds to my divorce petition. I've been told that will take about a week. Looking at the idiot, I said, you've seen what I'm capable of. I'm giving you 3 days to leave the state. If you're still here on Monday, I'll make you a cripple in a much more literal sense. Opening the front door, I glanced back at the utterly defeated cheaters and said, have a wonderful weekend in New York. Both days should be lovely.
Thank you for listening until the end. See you in the next episode of Cheating Secrets. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. Goodbye.